House resumes its sitting. Please be seated. Let me at this time apologize for our late start. As far as I'm aware, most persons were in their places for a prompt start at 10 o'clock. However, we were unable to do so because of some matters. Let me make it abundantly clear and at the same time ensure that this is the last time, first and last time, that we have to start late because of some persons who are not punctual. I said that because when we adjourned yesterday, I made it abundantly clear that we would have started at 10 o'clock. And I had to make a call to find out what was the problem. And I will say no more at this time. Member opposite, are you ready? Kindly proceed. Sorry for it. I hope that somebody would give an explanation as to why this House had to be 12 minutes late. Thank you.
Mr. President, members opposite, Clerk of the House, legal advisor, officers on duty, members of the public gallery, a pleasant good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. President, it is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to rise to present a response on behalf of the opposition to this year's budget under the theme, Recapturing the Momentum, Restoring Fiscal Sustainability. Mr. President, it is obvious from the presentation of the budget yesterday by Member for Nevis 2 and Minister of Finance that this government has indeed lost its momentum. Whilst we accept that the COVID-19 pandemic is indeed a contributory factor to the economic turmoil that our beloved Nevis is now facing, we can all agree that it is not the only factor. Mr. President, I take this opportunity to remind this honorable House that the economy of Nevis was on a downward spiral long before the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is clearly reflected in the budgets of 2018 and 2019, respectively, due to lack of proper fiscal plans and policies to drive the economy, excess spending over the past 4 years, which has significantly increased the national debt, which now stands at a whopping $492.9 million. Failure to diversify the economy prior to COVID-19, despite the many appeals from the opposition and other stakeholders. Lack of vision and innovation to move Nevis forward in a meaningful way. Mr. President, this administration has failed Nevisians yet again. This budget offers low growth, low productivity, a low-wage future, and millions of dollars in debt. Is this really the best that we can aspire to? Mr. President, I wish to speak briefly on our economic state. Mr. President, the need for economic diversification has never been greater. I acknowledge this administration's effort to diversify the economy through the film industry by partnering with MSR Media. Whilst we accept this as an alternative source of income due to the vulnerability of the film industry market, this should not be considered as a long-term measure to attribute to fiscal prudency. We must be mindful that the film industry is indeed of a volatile nature and does not foster sustainability nor longevity. This may very well generate current revenue, but certainly we cannot rely on this source for long-term capital revenue. Mr. President, at paragraph 10 of the budget address on page 3, the member for Nevis 2 alluded that he never thought that he would have lost 2 years thus far due to the global pandemic. It is pertinent that the honorable member expound on this statement, Mr. President. You see, the COVID-19 pandemic has in no way, shape, nor form taken away from this administration ability to lead amidst adversity. Leaders throughout the world have been faced with same or similar challenges, and many have risen to the occasion to start to put their best foot forward to drive the economy. Take, for example, Mr. President, Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados. She has not only been successful in stabilizing the economy of Barbados during the pandemic, but she has also made international headwaves by becoming a strong advocate and influencer for climate change.
Please.
As a matter of fact, Mr. President, Prime Minister Mottley was recently awarded the Champions of Earth Award by the United Nations for her dynamic leadership and advocacy for a sustainable world from the global south, for consistently raising the alarm about the vulnerability of small island states due to climate emergency. She and many other leaders use the pandemic as a test, Mr. President, to demonstrate strong leadership despite challenges. I can assure you, Mr. President, that they do not feel cheated nor robbed as they continue to lead in spite of. Additionally, Mr. President, on our sister island, St. Kitts, recently we witnessed the opening of the Ramada Hotel on December 2nd, 2021, despite the pandemic. Mr. President, these are all living examples of leaders demonstrating once again that once there is a will, there must be a way. You see, Mr. President, there are leaders around the world, including those in the Caribbean region, who have stood up despite the challenges of COVID-19 and demonstrated leadership in using the opportunity to shine rather than using the pandemic as an excuse with the usual blame game rhetoric. The proverb is indeed true, Mr. President. Where there is no vision, the people will perish. A good government is responsible for building a strong economy, a fairer society, a society that opens doors to education, to employment, to decent housing, to proper health care, and to a better life for the people of its country. I have lived as a young woman during the period of 2006 to 2011, and I saw it firsthand, the unprecedented efforts of the NRP-led administration exerted in creating jobs, connecting communities, boosting productivity in our country. I understand the value and the power of a good government and good governance. I know that our country needs and deserves a good government again. A government that believes in its people's potential and a leader who shares values and aspirations. Mr. President, when we look at our beloved country today, I also know that we can do much better. So much better than wages and salaries declining over the past 4 years. So much better than 5 more years of scandal, government treating taxpayers' funds as if they are parties' funds. So much better than 5 more years of announcements that are never delivered. And so much better than merely coming back, but rather building back stronger. Mr. President, we want Nevis to emerge from this crisis stronger, smarter, and more self-reliant, with an economic recovery that works for all Nevisians. Throughout this pandemic, our people have suffered so much that the time has now come for Nevisians to start living again. Mr. President, I will now present an NRP alternative policy agenda. An agenda with 3 guiding principles that will drive NRP in government. An economy that delivers for working families, investing in Nevis's future, and a no one held back policy and no one left behind policy. These 3 principles will drive our plans and policies.
Please. Remember, please be quiet.
The reality is, I'm sorry. I thought it said Curtis.
No, but the members have to sit down because of the disturbance. Please, be moderate with your crosstalk. Please. Proceed, please.
Mr. Speaker, these 3 principles will drive our plans and policies to secure a better future, improve the standard of living, and promote fairness and equity. We have the opportunity to reinvent our economy, to lift wages and ensure that they keep rising, to invest in manufacturing and in skills and training, to provide affordable child care, to provide affordable fixed-age care, to address the housing situation here on Nevis, to champion for equality for women, and to emerge as a renewable energy superpower. That is the better future that we want to secure for Nevis. But yesterday's budget didn't speak of this country's future. It only told the sorry tale of 9 years of neglect and budgetary deficits. 9 years of wasted opportunities and running from responsibility. 9 years of flat wages without increments, and despite the rising cost of living. 9 years of ignoring problems, failing to diversify the economy. 9 years of cushy jobs for members of cabinet and their supporters, and insecure work opportunities for ordinary divisions and residents. 9 years of holding people back and leaving people behind. I measure the strength of the economy, but by how it works for people. So for me, there is a simple test by which we can judge the last 9 years. Do you feel better off than you did 9 years ago? Do you feel better off than you did 4 years ago? Do you feel more secure at work? When did you last get an increment raise? Are you finding it easier to pay your bills? Are you more certain about your future? And more importantly, your children's future? Mr. President, the past 9 years has been very good for the members opposite. But has it been good for the ordinary citizens and residents of Nevis? Because after 9 years in government, this government is getting ready to ask the good people of Nevis for 5 more years. But, Mr. President, the good people of Nevis must not forget. This government wants you to forget. Forget their failures. Forget their broken promises. Forget the jobs for all their mates. Make no mistake that the budget handed down on Tuesday, 7 December 2021 is not a plan for the next generation. It is a patch-up job for the next election. Like so much with this government, with all its smirks and mirrors. This government, in all its announcements, it's all about announcements and no delivery. You see, Mr. President, the member for Nevis 2 is all about announcements for him. Always press conferences and a photo op. But when it comes to the part that affects the delivery, he has lost interest. His only interest at this point is blaming someone else. We are now being told that the fair share that we heard so much about really isn't fair at all. And one have to ask the question, Mr. President, why isn't the fair share fair? Why is this? And if it is, and Mr. President, make no mistake that I do advocate for a fair share for Nevis. But if it is that the fair is not share, Mr. President, then the question must be asked of the members opposite, what are they doing about this? Mr. President, the members opposite, at least 3 of them sit in a federal cabinet. And so, one have to ask whether a proposal or a submission pertaining to the fair share was ever put before the federal cabinet. What step is this NIA willing to take to address the situation? Are they prepared to go all the way to the court in order to address the constitutional matter? If at all it is indeed a constitutional matter, Mr. President, or are we going to continue with the social media frenzy and only raise the issue when it is convenient? Mr. President, these are questions that I sincerely hope that the Honorable Member for Nevis too could address in his rebuttal. Because you see, Mr. President, the people of Nevis needs to know, we need to understand what really is this fair share, how is it calculated, what agreement was made with the federal government, and if it is, Mr. President, that Nevis is not getting its fair share, what steps will this government take in order to address that issue?
I mean, these people should be jailed, laptop.
Mr. President,
Everything against this country, but fight against Nevis.
I believe that the economy should work for the people and not the other way around. Our people have endured 9 long years of stagnant wages, growing job insecurity, pressure on family costs like childcare, rent, petrol, groceries, healthcare, what have you. We know Nevisians are counted as, we know many Nevisians who are counted as employed, but who can't get enough hours to pay bills or who can't count on regular working hours. Mr. President, we know too many Nevisians who are being exploited, underpaid, and subjected to unsafe working environment, and who are held hostage because their employment tenure are not sufficiently secured. Mr. President, foremost in my mind are the non-established workers in this country. These are the people who go out every day, toil the soil, work 8, sometimes 9, 10 hours, just like other civil servants, and who, at the end of the day, and in many cases, after given some 25 to 30 years of service, they go home with nothing. And the excuse, time and time again, Mr. President, is the fact that the NIA does not have a policy in place to give pension to these workers. Mr. President, I dare say that the time has now come for that to change. And I can assure you, Mr. President, that an NRP-led administration will ensure that the necessary legislative framework is put in place to give equal protection and safeguards to all civil servants, even those who are deemed as non-established. You see, Mr. President, in our history, the time has now come for us to have a unified employment legislation that protects the right to employment for not only civil servants, but all employees of Nevis. It is something that has been well overdue. And whilst this may very well be a federal matter, Mr. President, it is not one that the NIA cannot sound its voice to, if at all it cared about Nevisians and Nevisians residents. And so, Mr. President, an NRP-led administration will ensure that every single worker in the island of Nevis is fully protected, compensated, and is given their just due for their years of dedicated service. Mr. President, I wish to now address Section 23 of the Budget Address as presented yesterday. It can be found on page 36 to be exact. The honorable member for Nevis 2 stated that we will continue our efforts at renewable energy development, especially the exploration of geothermal energy. He further stated that discussions with financiers are finally at an end stage. Mr. President, we have heard this now for at least 3 or 4 years. The same repetitive rhetoric over and over again. But most importantly, Mr. President, when an election is drawing near. In this budget address for 2022, Mr. President, page 35, section 117 to be exact, the Premier announces once again that discussions are now at an advanced stage with Caribbean Development Bank for financing the drilling phase of the geothermal plant. At an advanced stage of discussion, at an end stage of discussion, each year we hear that discussions are wrapping up, and another year, then another year, then another year passes, and we are still without any advancement in developing renewable energy by this government. Mr. President, the pursuit of geothermal energy is significant to the people of Nevis because it offers the best opportunity for residents of Nevis to have affordable, clean energy. The fluctuating cost of fossil fuels and the high cost of electricity generation hinders economic development and are not conducive to stimulating foreign direct investments. We are desperately in need of the FDI, and we must aim to achieve affordable, renewable electricity for the benefit of investors, for the benefit of citizens and residents, and to help achieve sustainable development goals. Mr. President, sustainable development is a universal benchmark that all nations aim to achieve. In his 2022 budget address, at section 113, page 34 to be exact, the honorable member for Nevis 2 incorporated Sustainable Development Goal number 7 in his address as a measure of his progress to this global matrix. I am not surprised of this inclusion, Mr. President, because NRP has repeatedly stated that the Sustainable Development Goals provide the most practical framework for achieving sustainable development in small developing islands such as Nevis. Horrifically, however, Mr. President, the Premier boldly announced that he has achieved SDG 7 on Nevis. This is very comical, Mr. President, as electricity supply is readily available in all communities. The glaring omission is the fact that SDG 7 is achieved when the population has access to affordable, clean, and sustainable supply of electricity. Electricity provided by a Wärtsilä generator powered by diesel, whether old or new, is not cheap. It is not clean, and it is certainly not sustainable. The honorable member for Nevis 2 must be advised that SDG 7 will be achieved when electricity in Nevis is produced from renewable resources such as geothermal, wind, or solar energy. It is obvious that the honorable member for Nevis 2 does not understand the concept of sustainable development. And unfortunately, we who must pay high electricity bills with high surcharges month after month are the ones who will suffer the consequences of his mistake. Mr. President, billions of dollars are available for climate finance to support developing countries in minimizing resilience on fossil fuels and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Early this year, the federal government sought a grant for a project entitled Achieving a Rapid Decarbonization of Energy Sector in St. Kitts and Nevis to help the country achieve, among other things, 100% renewable electricity generation. Mr. President, the Green Climate Fund, GCF, is a unique global platform established to respond to climate change by investing in low emissions and climate resilient development. GCF was established by 194 governments to limit and reduce greenhouse gas emissions in developing countries and to help vulnerable societies adapt to unavoidable impacts of climate change. Mr. President, in 2016, the GCF approved a regional project entitled Sustainable Energy Facility for the Eastern Caribbean, being implemented by the Inter-American Development Bank and executed through the Caribbean Development Bank. The Sustainable Energy Facility for the Eastern Caribbean was approved to address the financial, technical, and institutional barriers by providing institutional strengthening and capacity building, and by providing a finance package including concession loans to reimbursable grants to mitigate exploration and other underlying risks, and to unlock investments by GE by the private sector. Critical to develop GE projects in the region. To the end result, we will deliver GH emissions reductions by 9.4 million during the lifetime of the program. Mr. President, under this project, US $23.9 million was allocated for the development of geothermal energy in St. Kitts and Nevis. After several years of fertile attempts to source private investors, for the first time yesterday, the honorable member for Nevis 2 mentioned that the Caribbean Development Bank, which is where they should have started from since 2016, to be guided and to keep the people of Nevis adequately informed about the process of geothermal development in Nevis under the FP20 GCF project. It is very unfortunate, Mr. President, that there are so many funding opportunities to pursue renewable energy, and after so much waiting for geothermal energy in Nevis, the honorable member for Nevis 2 chooses to invest yet again, in non-renewable and expensive energy. The irony is that the decisions of the Honorable Member for Nevis 2 takes us backwards and farther away from achieving sustainable development in this country. Mr. President, the high cost of electricity keeps many of us and many struggling families in poverty. Yet, the Honorable Premier's best decision was to invest in an additional EC 16 million watt-cell generator for the people of Nevis to continue to pay high costs of fossil fuel energy. With a focus on renewable energy and sustainable development, the NRP would have considered developing another source of renewable energy, such as wind, solar, rather than investing in a watt-cell generator. The people of Nevis, watt-cell generator. The people of Nevis have been made aware of where we are with the GCF project so that residents and investors can have a clear understanding of when and how geothermal for Nevis would be realized. While the GCF project is allocated funding for one phase of geothermal development, proposals should have already been prepared to seek funding for the Adaptation Fund, the Climate Investment Fund, and other such entities that have been established by the SIDS, meeting their climate adaptation and mitigation objectives under the Paris Agreement. This CCM-led administration has no vision and have been wandering aimlessly with no purpose and direction for the development of Nevis. An NRP-led administration has a clearer vision for where Nevis ought to be going to achieve a sustainable economy and effectively harnessing our natural resources, which is central to that vision. Mr. President, permit me a few minutes, Mr. President. Mr. President, whilst the virtue of the budget, adequately entitled Recapturing the Momentum and Restoring Fiscal Strategy, is a clear admittance of failure. And finally, this government, through this team, has admitted that they have clearly failed the people of Nevis and have also lost the momentum. And we all can feel it, Mr. President. Not just the economic momentum, but the social momentum. At paragraph 10 of the, Mr. President, at paragraph 11, Mr. President, this government has had the audacity to boast that they were able to keep our public servants gainfully employed, with, of course, assistance from the federal government, as alluded by the Honorable Member for Nevis 2. Due to failed economic policies and lack of contingency planning, the NIA surely could not afford to pay civil servants without the assistance of the federal government for the past 4 years. However, Mr. President, instead of being a baby sucking on the breast of its mother, because that is what Nevis has been reduced to, our constant dependency on St. Kitts, and the NIA's failure to ensure that it can adequately and independently drive Nevis forward without dependency on the federal government for assistance. Mr. President, of course, because we are a twin island federation, one can expect that certain resources will be shared. But the point for the good people of Nevis is, what have the NIA generated independently and self-sufficiently for its own self? That is the question. Mr. President, once again, yesterday we were presented with a tax-laden budget. A budget where the only means, or the major means of revenue, was through tax collection. This is not surprising, Mr. President. It is certainly not surprising, because we are in challenging times. But as a budget is a plan forward, Mr. President, one would have loved to see within that budget some hope, some aspirations to create not only current revenue, but capital revenue. There is a need for a capital project here in Nevis, Mr. President. And without going into great details and expounding on the plans at this time that an NRP-led administration have for this country, it is important for us here in Nevis to note that we cannot continue with another 5 years of Napoleon style of government where revenue is generated only through means of taxation. It is killing our people, Mr. President. You see, Mr. President, when Nevisians go to the poll to elect a government, they are electing a government that in their minds that they would think care for the people of Nevis. They honestly and humbly are electing a government who they think would put the necessary fiscal policies and plans in place so that divisions' lives can be enhanced. But clearly, we have seen time and time again the constant failure of this administration to lead on strength, to lead without excuses, to create jobs, to diversify, to provide the means by which our people can live sustainable lives. Mr. President, we all here in the Caribbean region and throughout the world, we know the challenges of the pandemic. But those challenges must not be seen as an excuse. Rather, Mr. President, they must be seen as an opportunity to shift gears, an opportunity to rebuild, an opportunity to create investment opportunities, an opportunity to ensure that we can provide adequate capital to sustain the people of Nevis. We did not see that in the budget yesterday, Mr. President. I wish now to take a few minutes, Mr. President, to talk about healthcare in this country. I promise not to be too long on this topic because we have not seen any aggressive approach made to enhance healthcare here in Nevis. Mr. President, as a matter of fact, the government, in its attempt, as it coined, to recapture the momentum, certainly it has been lost, has indicated in the budget that measures were taken to upgrade the healthcare sector here on Nevis. And Mr. President, I refer specifically to page 41, section 5.2, repositioning our healthcare. Mr. President, we are indeed very grateful, and I must commend the effort of the private donor, that is the Patrick Lena Dairy Foundation, who have generously donated a CT scan machine at the cost of US $839,000. Mr. President, this advancement in healthcare has long been overdue. And so we are indeed grateful, and we do commend the generous donation. But Mr. President, there is a question that one would have to ask. And I am asking, Mr. President, on behalf of the good people of Nevis 5 who sent me to this honorable house. What is the situation with the new wing at the Alexandra Hospital? Mr. President, in the budget address yesterday, the honorable member for Nevis 2 boasted that the new wing is almost twice the size of the existing hospital. But Mr. President, this new wing has been under construction now for almost 5 years. And to date, we have not seen any fruitful development in this new wing. And we must ask, what is the issue that has caused such significant delay in preventing this new wing from being well on its way? Mr. President, we have been told time and time again that there have been issues with the structural design of the unit. At one point, we were told that consultations are being ongoing for the redesigning of the inside of the structure. Mr. President, one cannot help but ask the question, why is that? And so far, what has been the cost? And I must say here, Mr. President, the wasted cost as to why this project has not been completed in a timely manner. Mr. President, those are questions that the people of Nevis have empowered me to ask this government. Mr. President, at Section 142 of the budget, the government has alluded that it has invested in a number of COVID-19 related equipment. We see ventilators, we even see point-and-key machine at a cost of US $226,871. We even see vaccine refrigeration costing US $13,531. But Mr. President, we also see that the government was able to pursue a machine to conduct testing, PCR testing, specialized machine. But Mr. President, one have to ask, because there was no report in the budget as to the implementation of this testing machine and whether testing is presently being done at the Alexandra Hospital. Mr. President, I am told that no such testing is ongoing, as further equipment is needed in order to effect the process. So, Mr. President, again, here it is that we are presented with budgetary announcements, but no practical and strong deliverables that could impact and enhance the lives of Nevisians. Mr. President, yet again, we have seen a budget that is filled with a lot of fluff, but little substance. Mr. President, we are quite elated that we finally witnessed the opening of the Newcastle Police Station and Fire Hall in December 2020. Nevertheless, we await the day when the Fire Hall would become fully functioning to the extent that it can actually host a fire truck. Mr. President, I am told that the existing fire hall cannot adequately host a fire truck at present. Yes, it can park up outside, Mr. President. And this may very well be a laughing matter for the members opposite, Mr. President. But it is indeed a serious matter for the good people of Nevis, Mr. President. Because you see, when you design something and you exert resources to build something with a specific intention, and then due to inadvertent errors, that design and that structure cannot adequately fit into the design, Mr. President, it may be considered as wastage. Mr. President, and we have seen time and time again where plans are put in place, buildings are constructed, resources have been exerted, and they result in wastage. No different, Mr. President, from the state of affairs at the new wing of the Alexandra Hospital. And Mr. President, this government must be held responsible and accountable to the people of Nevis for the lack of proper management of fiscal resources, for the wastage, Mr. President, that we have seen time and time again. Mr. President, one have to ask themselves whether we are moving forward or whether we are going backward in this country. You see, Mr. President, because the budget address yesterday made many promises. Promises that perhaps, if they would actually be carried out, could enhance the lives of divisions. But, Mr. President, we have not seen that. Time and time again, year after year, the budget is reported in a deficit, but we cannot see the actual development that is taking place on Nevis. We see developments that a government, any elected government, would seek and aspire to perform. Yes, we see roads, Mr. President. We see the construction of houses, minimal. But, Mr. President, one has to ask the question, why does this government continue to beat its chest at what I would coin as ordinary development? Development that comes with the nature of the employment. Mr. President, why do they continue to rejoice and pat themselves on the shoulder for simply performing the duty which the people of Nevis elected them to do? Mr. President, one would expect that if a teller in a bank is employed and contracted to be a teller, and during their daily duties, they give persons deposit, they take deposits and give persons their withdrawals from their savings, that teller is merely doing the job that they have been contracted to do. It is the same concept here, Mr. President. There is nothing extraordinary, nothing that is worth boast, nothing to beat the chest about. Mr. President, our people expect infrastructure development at some level. Our people expect houses. Our people expect roads that are dilapidated to be repaired. But, Mr. President, our people also expect projects. Our people also expect for other means of income, revenue-generated income. Our people expect advancement in tourism. Our people, Nevians, similar to Kittians, expect new hotels. Our people would like to see a Ramada here in Nevis. Our people would love to see the completion of the seaport there at Owali Bay. Our people expect, Mr. President, our people expect a world class educational facility. Mr. President, I have observed in the budget under the heading Education that the completion of the TVEC at the Gingerland Secondary School has now been, has now been completed. There is a proposal for a similar structure to be placed at CSS at a whopping cost of $6 million. Mr. President, one perhaps would have thought a prudent and sensible and visionary government may have thought that wouldn't it have been better to build a state-of-the-art skills facility that would provide technological advancement and training, not only for the students, the secondary school students, but the wider populace of Nevis. Mr. President, if we combine the two projects, it is totaling perhaps a whopping $9 million. But Mr. President, wouldn't those monies be better have spent in creating a holistic facility where we can further enhance tertiary education and maintain skills promotion and training here in Nevis, where we can ensure that our people have access to the latest technologies so that they can go out there and be creative and innovative, Mr. President. Mr. President, that would have been the vision of a visionary government. But what we have here, Mr. President, time and time again, is a government that plans as it goes along the way. And so there is no focused, structured planning that can really have meaningful impact and set Nevis apart or even put it at the same standard as its other countries. Mr. President, it is time, and the time has perhaps come for our country to have its own technical skills center, something at the same level as, and perhaps even better than CFBC. Mr. President, with the advancement of education, just imagine what this skills center would have brought to Nevis. It would have given our young people the opportunity to pursue tertiary level education and skills training, at least to the level of a university graduate. Mr. President, you see, that is what a responsible government does. A government with a clear plan, with vision. But you see, Mr. President, that is what is lacking in this government, in this present NIA, who happen to be a fix as you go and amend as you go along government. Mr. President, Mr. President, in an NRP alternative budget, an NRP government will invest in the Nevisian industry and workforce, setting them up for success, not only for today, but for the future. We will create jobs and skills for Nevisians to advise on future work opportunity and to ensure that all Nevisians can benefit from them. We will establish, Mr. President, a national reconstruction fund to transform existing industries such as agriculture and tourism to make them state-of-the-art, Mr. President. We will partner with the private sector, including, Mr. President, the superannuation industry to ensure that we are able to manufacture products. Mr. President, long ago, very, very long ago, even before I was born, I am told by my great uncle that Nevis used to produce car batteries. Perhaps much too long for most of us to remember. Mr. President, if it is that we used to do that before, it is clear that we have the resources, the intellect, and the skills to enhance and create a manufacturing industry here in our little island. But, Mr. President, once again, it takes thought, it will take planning, and it will take a visionary leadership to ensure that the manufacturing industry is once again revived and is productive in our little society. You see, Mr. President, a change is needed. We cannot continue with the same rhetoric of taxing our citizens to death. In the budget address yesterday, Mr. President, the honorable member for Nevis, too, implored that our people must pay their taxes. And, Mr. President, it is my sincerest belief that Nevisians really do aspire to pay their taxes. But, Mr. President, we cannot continue to build an economy and only revenue generated from taxes. We have to find means and ways of diversifying the economy. And that goes beyond putting our eggs in the basket in industries that are vulnerable, such as the film industry. COVID has taught us a lot, Mr. President. It has taught us that in order for us to build sustainable economy, we must be able to create and diversify our small economies. We have to invest in small businesses at perhaps a larger and more robust scale. We have to develop the orange economy. We have to focus more on building a society where small businesses are interdependent on each other and the government is able to provide assistance in order to ensure that these businesses are not only started and stopped, but they are able to maintain themselves and become sustainable. Mr. President, year after year in the budget address, we get glaring reports about how many businesses were open, registered with the Inland Revenue. But one sometimes have to ask the question, Mr. President, how many of those small businesses actually survive? how many of them continue to survive for at least 1 year? Mr. President, this statistic shows that not many. Because even though people register their small businesses, oftentimes when they are hit with the hardship of sustaining and maintaining those businesses, Mr. President, what we see are a number of cases where businesses are struck off. Businesses can no longer pay their unincorporated taxes, Mr. President. And so the aim, Mr. President, should not just be to boast about the number of small businesses that are open, but we must take a deliberate and prudent approach in ensuring that these small businesses, that they remain sustainable. Because you see, Mr. President, the small business is the avenue for wealth creation in this country. It is the avenue that if it is designed properly, if there is prudent fiscal planning, the small business industry, Mr. President, or the orange economy can provide not only current revenue for the people of Nevis, but more importantly, Mr. President, long-term capital revenue. And you see, Mr. President, that is the aspiration of an NRP-led Nevis Island administration. Mr. President, our young people have used the pandemic to be creative. A number of them have started up their own businesses, but they are struggling, Mr. President. Struggling because they need assistance. Sometimes, yes, they are given assistance with startup costs. But what about maintenance costs, Mr. President? That is something that is definitely needed in this country. And I can assure you, and I can assure the people of Nevis, Mr. President, that an NRP-led administration will ensure that the necessary funding, the adequate funding is put in place to ensure that small businesses are not only created, but they are sustained. Mr. President, I want to speak a bit about the third goal or objective of an NRP-led alternative budget. And that is, no one held back, no one left behind. Every one of us hope or aspire to grow old someday. More and more of us are living longer, and there is a situation here in Nevis where aged persons need extra care in their later lives. Mr. President, this is no secret. At present, we have 2 elderly homes in Nevis. And in most cases, Mr. President, these facilities are filled to capacity. They are what we call maxed out. And so there is indeed a waiting list. Mr. President, it is a serious problem. And I am simply proposing that this issue has to be addressed. Mr. President, our aged pensioners and retirees, people who have served, and in some cases, many of them serve with distinction, whether in the civil service or in the private sector. They have made their contribution to the development of Nevis. But when they become old, Mr. President, a lot of times there is no one to care for them. And so they have to be put into a care facility. But, Mr. President, if it is that the care facilities here on Nevis are maximized, there's no space available, then what would happen to our aged persons, pensioners, and retirees who would have made their contribution? Mr. President, this is something that an NRP-led administration will look at, because we see the need to provide adequate care and facility for our elderly persons. And one may say, well, that should be an opportunity for a private investor. And I do agree. But, Mr. President, as a civic-minded, compassionate government, if it is that no one is taking that responsibility and investing in that medium privately, should the government continue to neglect our people? Mr. President, perhaps the time has come for us to consider having a new facility that would provide adequate care for the elderly in this country. And with that facility, Mr. President, there must be a wing or a unit for those who have mental challenges. At present, Mr. President, there is no mental facility here on Nevis. Many persons who have mental challenges, they have to go over to St. Kitts to seek treatment. Mr. President, it is my humble proposal to the good people of Nevis that this issue must be addressed, and it will be addressed in future when the good people of Nevis elect a NRP-led Nevis Island administration. A government that has compassion for its people. A government that can see the need for all people, not just those who can benefit commercially, not just those who are friends with the government, not just those who are coined, quote unquote, as elitists, but all people. And so, Mr. President, with this no one left behind policy, we will ensure that we provide the adequate resources and facility and infrastructure to ensure that our elderly are well taken care of, and so that the families and loved ones can have some sort of alleviation and comfort to know that the aged and the elderly, they are not just needed for votes. Because a lot of time you see, Mr. President, people go to take these people. Some of them are even bedridden, and you see them on election morning going to their houses to take up these bedridden elderly people, some of them in wheelchair for a vote. But no one take into consideration, Mr. President, the quality of life of these people, even though they are aged. And so we have a responsibility, Mr. President, and that is something that an NRP-led administration will take very, very seriously as a part of our no one left behind policy. Mr. President, I wish to spend some time to address specific plans and initiatives for the good people of Nevis 5. Mr. President, I use this forum because having looked at the budget, I see provision for infrastructure development, but I see no specific mention of any projects in the constituency of Nevis 5. And so, Mr. President, I wish to say to the beloved people who I am eternally grateful, who elected me to stand in this parliament today, that you are not forgotten. You perhaps have been forgotten by this present administration, but you certainly will not be forgotten by an NRP-led Nevis Island administration. You see, Mr. President, there is a particular issue in my beloved constituency, and that is in St. Thomas's. And as we are talking about infrastructure development, Mr. President, there is a retaining wall at the Cotton Ground playfield that, through some perhaps infrastructure weakening or defects, the wall is now in a deplorable state to the extent that it is indeed a hazard. You see, Mr. President, because at any point in time, that retaining wall may very well fall on a resident of St. Thomas's. We don't know the time and we don't know when. Mr. President, after 9 years, the wall is still in the dilapidated condition. It is really about to fall at present. So I want the good people of St. Thomas's to know that under an NRP-led administration, that the remedial of that retaining wall would be one of the first objectives of that administration. You see, Mr. President, it goes back to the no one left behind policy of the NRP. If something is at a state where it is indeed a hazard, a danger, it can cause significant harm to people, it is something that must be addressed, Mr. President. The time is now, and it is here for it. And so, Mr. President, if during the next election cycle that problem is not addressed, the good people of St. Thomas's can very well rest assured that it will be taken care of by an NRP-led Nevis Island administration. Mr. President, there is also a drainage problem in the heart of St. Thomas's, more specifically in the heart of Cotton Ground. And Mr. President, I have spoken about it on numerous forums. I have spoken to the powers that be to seek to have some sort of alleviation to the problem, some sort of solution. And to date, the people of Cotton Ground continue to suffer with that problem. And year after year, they are told, oh, the project is a big project. We don't have the resources. We don't have the budget. Yet again, Mr. President, it continues to be a problem. And so, I want to say on record here today in this honorable house that when NRP is returned to government in the next election, my people, my dear people of Nevis 5, can be assured and feel confident that that issue, regardless of how big it is, that it will be addressed, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just want to say that again, a lot of times the good people of Nevis 5 are taken for fools. We have promises after promises. But after 9 years, Mr. President.
Just 1 minute, 1 minute. I detest the allegation that the people of constituency 5 are taken for fools. I would hope that you would never use that word again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do withdraw it because perhaps it is not parliamentary language.
Not.
But I would say, Mr. President, that the good people of St. Thomas's are cognitive enough to recognize when people do not have their best interests at hand. So, Mr. President, as I continue, I simply want to say that this budget, as presented, is similar to the budget of last year, where we saw a budget heavily relied on taxes, revenue generated from taxes. There is nothing in it to really create the growth and development that we so need here in Nevis coming outside of our pandemic. Mr. President, I want Nevisians to know that none of us really would never forget the COVID-19 pandemic. We really cannot afford to. But the pandemic must be a reminder for all of us to be grateful because of the sacrifices that many Nevisians have made to ensure that some of us are able to be sustained today. And so, Mr. President, Nevisians really should be rewarded, and they deserve to be rewarded with a government that is caring and worthy of their efforts. Mr. President, we can never, ever, ever, ever forget, and the good people of Nevis, particularly the good people of St. Thomas's, must never, ever, ever forget the challenges that you face, particularly with the issuance of your severance checks. Mr. President, it was a time when our people were suffering at the hands of this government. And I don't want our people to forget. But Mr. President, as we move on to presenting an agenda where no person here in Nevis is left behind, I just want to remind the good people of Nevis that the time has come for us to build a stronger economy. The time has come for us to ensure that people's labor are not taken for granted and that they are duly and justly rewarded. The time has come for us to provide adequate support, facility, and resources, not only for our young people, not only for children, but the aged. Mr. President, the time has come for us to elect a caring government, a government that has the skills, the talent, and the know-how in order to take Nevis out of this economic plight. A government that would present a people fostered intensive budget. A government that would always have the people at its heart. A government that understands that you cannot build a sound and solid economy on only taxation. The Napoleon effect is not working. It is time for Nevians to elect a leader who understands the values and the objectives of ordinary citizens. Not elitists, but ordinary citizens, ordinary men and women who go out there to work hard and who just want to be able to live, to invest in a house, to pay their mortgages comfortably, to have job security. Persons who, Mr. President, who can rest assured and lay in their bed at night and feel confident that they have a government that is working for them. Mr. President, I just want to say to the good people of Nevis that an NRP-led government is on your side. If you want strong economic policy, NRP is on your side. If you want more security at work, protected by a comprehensive employment legislation, NRP is on your side. If you support equality for women, especially in the workforce, NRP is on your side. If you support cleaner and more affordable energy, NRP is on your side. If you support cheaper childcare for your children, NRP certainly is on your side. And Mr. President, if you believe that the older Nevians deserve dignity and care in their later years, then NRP is certainly on your side. Mr. President, if you believe that a roof over your head is up to more than market forces, then NRP definitely is on your side. If you get the action on climate change and you understand the opportunity that Nevis has to emerge as a renewable energy superpower in this country that will create jobs, then NRP certainly is on your side. If you share in our ambition for redeveloping the manufacturing industry here on Nevis, then NRP certainly is on your side. Mr. President, as I conclude, I just want the good people of Nevis to know that the time has come for us to reassess, to reflect, and to look at the quality of governance that we have been provided with in this country for the past 9 years. And going back to the test, Mr. President, we have to ask ourselves, not individually, but collectively as a people, are we any better off than we were 9 years ago in terms of our economic and social prosperity? And if it is, Mr. President, that test is a resounding no for many Nevians, then, my dear people, you know precisely what to do in the upcoming elections. I thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, before I take my seat, I take this opportunity to extend warmest Christmas greetings to my beloved constituents. I do wish every single member of Nevis 5 and their families a hearty and healthy Christmas season and a prosperous new year. Mr. President, I extend the same sentiments to each member of this House and the members of the public gallery. Thank you, Mr. President, for accommodating me.
Yes, and as you're closing, I just want you to look at section 135. No, you're finished. You don't have to. And which dealt with the TVET program. And something you raised, it's there. So I just want you to look at it again and please. I recognize the Senator Liebert. You may proceed at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and with your permission, I rise to give my full support to the bill before this Honorable House, the bill short-titled Appropriations Ordinance 2022-2021. The bill seeks, Mr. President, to provide sums in the amount of 229 million in total expenditure. This could be broken down into just about 180 million in recurrent expenditure and just about 48 million in capital expenditure, Mr. President. Mr. President, it's always an honor to be able to come to this honorable house to give representation on behalf of the people of Nevis. And let me, while I'm here, commend the member opposite who just stepped out on her presentation. Even though I thought that it might have been better to come and support the bill and let us have a good time in this good Christmas season and move on. Because when you read the budget as presented by the mover yesterday, and you consider the times that we are living in, and you consider the situation, Mr. President, that from about March 2020 until now, we face unprecedented times. And to understand how we here in Nevis have been able to continue to live in the way that we are living because of the good leadership that we have gotten. I just couldn't understand why anybody would want to come to the house to, try to find fault where there is no fault to be found. And I guess probably by the nature of the name, maybe we should change the name from opposition. Maybe we should find some other euphemism or something that we can use to describe it, because it seems some would come to oppose just because the name is opposition. So I don't know if that is something that we can look into for the future, so that you could come and give some constructive criticism where it is necessary. And if you have a good idea about something, you can come and share your ideas. I don't think we have a monopoly on ideas over here on this side. We accept ideas from wherever they come from. Mr. President, I want to commend the mover of the bill, the Honorable Premier and the Minister of Finance. And I also want to commend his team at the Ministry of Finance, because we all know that to bring a budget and to ensure that the finances of the island, that they're all working well in a time like this, is not an easy thing, Mr. President. So I want to commend the mover of the bill. You know, I remember in December 2019, and we have to do a lot of flashback to 2019. I remember in December 2019, coming to the House for the budget, and I remember at that time, we had a lot of momentum. You understand, Mr. President? And that's why I believe that the theme for this year's budget is very fitting. No, we haven't lost momentum, but we haven't been able to pick up speed at the rate that we wanted to pick up speed. Because you see, we had that momentum, and we were already traveling, and we weren't just staying stagnant. We were picking up speed. So you see, when we came here in 2019, we had speed, we were going good, we had momentum, we were increasing. And then, out of nowhere, because certainly I don't think anybody expected it. Whether you're on this side of the house, whether you're on that side of the house, whether you're in the gallery, whether you're outside of the house, I don't think anybody could have anticipated what happened in 2020. We started to hear about COVID, and then before you know it, things that had never happened before, certainly in my lifetime, started happening. We were in lockdowns and so on. Thousands and thousands of airplanes fly every day. Airplanes stop flying. When have you ever heard anything like that happen? The entire world was thrusted into chaos. All of us lived through it. Everybody here knows that it happened. We can't pretend as if it didn't happen. So we were all here feeling good in 2019. We had a lot of plans, a lot of things that we felt we were going to get done. The tourism sector was looking good. I had heard that one of our biggest plants in Nevis, that they were looking for one of their best seasons. They had lots of bookings. All of that went for naught. All the hotels were closed. Travel stopped. Shipping was slowed. The price of oil around the world crashed. Stock market started going down. Well, Mr. President, if all of those things happened, then we would only expect that it would affect us here in Nevis also. It can't happen everywhere else around the world and not happen here. And so some would come here to speak as if they were living in some unparalleled universe. Not a parallel universe, because if you were in a parallel universe, you would at least see. But some would come here as if they were somewhere out there, oblivious to everything that has happened in the world from 2020 until now. When COVID-19 hit in 2020, and we started with the lockdowns and the shutdowns and so on, we did not know exactly what it was. You know, we had the state of emergency and all of that. We did not know exactly what we were dealing with. We did not know how long it was going to last. I'm sure many of us felt like, I remember that some folks in the tourism industry, the hotels and so on, decided, we're going to try to keep on our staff. We don't want to lose our staff because we think we can open back probably by summer. As in 2020. This is 2021. We've already passed summer, a full year after, and the hotel industry is just starting to come back to life. So imagine back then in 2020, we were thinking, or the thinking was, that this thing might blow over in a few months. Because nobody really knew what they were dealing with. The smartest people all around the world did not know. The same thing that happened here in St. Kitts and Nevis was happening all around. And Mr. President, we were managing the pandemic here in the Federation and here in Nevis better than in most places. Better than in most places. I heard the member opposite. You see? I wasn't even planning to reach so far, but while I'm here, I was planning to talk about a couple other things first. But while I'm here, and I'm thinking about it, let me talk about it. Because I heard the member opposite come in here to talk about Barbados and how wonderful the economy of Barbados is doing. I don't have any problem with Barbados. I want to say congratulations to Barbados on becoming a republic. I love Barbados. I've been there. I like Rihanna. I want to congratulate Rihanna for becoming a national hero. So nothing against Barbados. But the member opposite comes here to talk about Barbados and how well Barbados is doing. But we are doing better than Barbados. We have a higher GDP per capita than Barbados. If you look at GDP per capita, and the good thing about nowadays, this is not like long time ago when you come here you don't have certain information that you can't find it. When you're here and you hear people talking, you just need to go and Google and type in what you want to type in. So I am there sitting and I hear the member opposite starting to talk about, oh, how great Barbados is doing and how we here in Nevis not running government properly. But we're doing better than Barbados. When I go and Google, because I know when I follow the news, I always hear that we're doing better than Barbados and them. So I was flabbergasted what happened. They don't have access to Google to look it up before they come here to talk. So, Mr. President, I look up the thing, GDP per capita in the Caribbean. Bahamas is number one at 33,000 and a little bit. Trinidad and Tobago, who have oil, is number two at 33,000 and a little bit. And guess who is number three? St. Kitts and Nevis is number three. St. Kitts and Nevis is number three at 29,000. You understand? And then you got 4, Antigua and Barbuda. You got 5, the Dominican Republic. And then you go down to 6. That is where you find Barbados. You understand, Mr. President? But yet still, we have people come here to oppose just because they're supposed to oppose. Heaping tons of praises on the leader of Barbados to be doing this for the economy and doing that for the economy, and how Nevis is doing so bad. Right? That time Nevis is at number 3 and Barbados is at number 6. And you know the good thing about the people of Nevis? Just like how I use Google to look it up and to find it out. All the people out there of Nevis, they understand how to use Google. You go out there and everybody got their phone and they could look it up. So you can't fool anybody. So why come here to talk nonsense? That is not true. Only for people to go and Google, to look it up, to find out that you're being dishonest. Why? Why bother? See, Mr. President, when I come to the House, I try to go and look up whatever I plan to talk about. Because I don't want anybody to come here to tell me, oh, you don't know what you're saying. When I look it up on Google, it's not so you go. I try to do my research, and I try to make sure that I know what I'm saying. If I don't know it ahead of time, I find somebody with the information. And I ask them. And I try to verify it. So that when I come to the Honorable House, I come to give good and correct information to the people of Nevis. Mr. President, before I got kind of on that sideways thing, because the Barbados thing was about leadership, commending the leader of Barbados for such a great job and all of that. So before I got sidetracked, I was commending the mover of the bill, the Minister of Finance and the Premier. And you know, just in case some of us might have forgotten, since this whole COVID-19 pandemic started, the Premier has not taken a salary from the Nevis Island administration. You understand that? You understand that, Mr. President? That right there is leadership. Let's go on Google, whoever wants to go on Google, and go look up to see who else has foregone their salary as a leader in solidarity with the people who are suffering. Let me pause for a cause, Mr. President. Because it's good when you're talking that everybody get to hear and absorb what is being said. So, Mr. President, you remember I said, right, that how it was said that Barbados doing so well, and the leadership in Barbados is so good. And you remember where I said Barbados is? Number 6 on GDP at 18,000 something. And where St. Kitts and Nevis is? Number 3. And you recall I said that I was commending the mover of the bill, the Minister of Finance and the Premier of Nevis, because from the start of the COVID pandemic, he has not drawn a salary from the Nevis Island administration. That is leadership.
Evidence.
That is leadership. That is leadership. Mr. President, I think some time ago we passed a bill about freedom of information. Did we?
Yes, we did.
I believe so.
Yes, we did.
And I believe that the information is readily accessible at the Ministry of Finance or Treasury or wherever they would have such information. So whoever wants the information could go and look for it. You understand? When we talk, we make sure that when you type it in on Google and you search for it, that what we say is what come back. We don't come in here to say anything, and then when you type it in on Google, it's different things you're seeing. You understand, Mr. President? So I say it with no fear of condemnation or being wrong, that the Premier has not drawn a salary from the Nevis Island administration since the start of the COVID pandemic, and that is leadership. So when we want to go and big up people from wherever they come from, I have no problem with them, right? For the great job that they are doing, well, we're going to big up people from here too who are doing a better job.
Yes.
Better job. You know how long our schools in Nevis open? Long time. When they open schools in places that people say running better. Not that I'm, Mr. President, calling down anybody, you know? But the contrast was made here. And you can't come here to make contrasts and use things that are, you know, not as good. Can't do it and get away with it. Don't expect to do it. Maybe somewhere else, but not here. You know, I was sitting down early this morning and I thought, and we're going to just have a merry old time in the house for the budget. I thought that I would have just heard, you know, I support the budget. I think you could change this or that, but I support it. That's what I thought I would have heard. And then we would have all come up and sing Kumbaya and gone, but that's not the case. You have a point, you know. you have a point.
That will never happen.
I ain't even gone to talk about anything on the paper yet, Mr. President. You realize I have a little thing of pointers and so on. And I haven't really gone to talk really anything that's on the paper, because I believe when I came to the house, I remember one time, Mr. President, that you were admonishing somebody. You know, when you come, you could read a little bit, but it's not a reading competition. You understand? I remember that. We come here to talk and, you know, give the people good information, and that's what we do. So, President, early up, because I already see where this is going. Early up. I see where it's going, so let me do this early. Right? We had overseas exams this year, in spite of all of the COVID and so on. We were able to get overseas exams done, the CAPE exams, the CSEC exams, the CCSLC exams. They were delayed, you know, a little later than they would usually start, I think for the second year in a row. And so I want to take some time to congratulate, you know, those students who wrote overseas exams. And, you know, I think the students did exceptionally well in spite of all of the adversity that they have had to, you know, overcome. The lockdowns, the intermittent closure of schools or closure of particular classes, the shifts to the virtual system when we had a spike in the number of COVID-19 cases, and of course the shifts in the exam schedule. It can't be easy that you're already preparing for exams to be at a certain time and then there's a shift. It kind of messes with the psyche for persons who have, you know, had to prepare for exams. You would understand it. It kind of messes with the psyche. And even now, you know, when I asked for the information, I was admonished, Mr. President, that I shouldn't say too much or go into too much detail about the results, because the results that we have gotten are still, quote-unquote, preliminary results, and that they have not been finalized as yet. But nonetheless, I will give a little commendation where commendation is due, because I believe that when the students go out and they work hard, that they deserve to be recognized for their hard work and for their excellence. So just a little bit about that. I think a few weeks ago, I went to the graduation for the Nevis International Secondary School. That's our private high school here on Nevis. And I watched the students graduate. I was very proud of it. Miss Nakisha Henry was adjudged the best student. She had 6 subject passes. And also Miss Aquila Marksman, she did very, very well at the Nevis International Secondary School. At the Gingerland Secondary School, in spite of the pandemic and all of that, we had some 21 students who got 7 subjects or more. You know, some got 10 and so on. But overall, we had 21 students achieving more than 7 passes, and I think that is exceptional. I'll make special mention of a few students: Bibliana Thomas, Kicilia Liebert, Julicia Griffin, Camille Burnett, Shaquida Brown. And those students would have gotten 10 subject passes or more. And I think that's excellent, Mr. President. At Charlestown Secondary School, we had a whopping 40 students who achieved more than 7 subject passes. That's 40, Mr. President. You know how amazing that is? 40 students passing 7 subjects or more. I remember a long time ago, you know, when you pass 3, 4, 5, 6 subjects, everybody's saying, oh, real bright, you know? So to have 40 students achieving 7 subjects or more, it is truly exceptional. And I'll call a few names who did exceptionally well. Jacalia Barrett, Alexander Keynes, Sarai Archibald, Jaden Liebert, Desniqua Bartlett, Tikwani Morton, Astra Simon, Brianny Chapman, Jules Scarborough. These students would have achieved 10 subjects or more, Mr. President. And it's a lot of names I just called, 10 subjects or more. And so we really, really have to take time out to recognize our young people when they do well. At the Nevis Sixth Form College, we had 10 first-year students who achieved 4-unit passes or more. Special mention of Zara Trotman, who got 4 grade 1s, and that's in the first year students. And for the second year students, we had 13 students who achieved 4 units or more. And special mention should be made of Zait Body, Angelique Liverpool, and Dijone Hanley, who each got 3 grade 1s. So you see, Mr. President, in spite of all of the things that we have happening around us, we are still able to do well here in Nevis. Our children have done exceptionally well on their overseas exams. CAPE, CSEC, CCSLC, across the board, they have done exceptionally well. And I want to say special congratulations to all of our students who wrote overseas exams. I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate and commend all of the parents, because the students would not be where they are without the hard work and the encouragement and the money spent by the parents and the guardians and the other family members and so on, and well-wishers who really contribute to get them to where they are. And of course, even though the teachers are working and are being paid, I believe that they go above and beyond the call of duty and that they deserve some special commendation. You see, Mr. President, we heard earlier that when you're working and you're getting paid, you shouldn't think it anything special when things happen because you're getting paid to do it. But I believe that our teachers go out there and they do a really, really good job. And every chance I get, every opportunity I get, I want to commend them for the hard work that they put in. I also want to commend some of the staff at the ministry and the Department of Education, because they've had to, work hard and to do a lot. There's a lot of back and forth between the department and the ministry and CXC and so on to ensure that everything could come off, without a hitch in the way that it came off. And I want to single out Miss Delicia French for some special, commendation. Delicia is the person who deals with the registration and so on for us here in Nevis with our CXC registration. And, all during the lockdown and so on, when most people are home, ensuring that they're safe from COVID and the like, Delicia was in the office almost every single day, ensuring that, our students are properly registered and that everything was going well in terms of the preparations for the overseas exams. So I want to single her out for some special commendation. You see, Mr. President, and it's worth saying as many times as you could say it, so that it sticks. When it gets into the head, that it sticks there. That's simply because somebody has a job and they're being paid to do a specific thing. It doesn't mean that you can't commend them if they do well, And we need to learn to commend people when they do a good job.
Including the government.
Yes. That's the kind of leadership you have over here, That when you do well, we are going to commend you. Regardless to the factor whether you're being paid or not. And so, Mr. President, I did say that I went to the NISS graduation a few weeks ago, and I was really pleased. I think, it's good to recognize our students when they do well. I think graduation is important. And the Gingerland Secondary School, they will be having their graduation tomorrow at 9 a.m. And I believe it's going to be streaming live, So for those of you out there who are on the live stream right now, we have graduation tomorrow at Gingerland Secondary School, 9 a.m. Do tune in, It's important when we show that support. Those of us who can't be there in person, tune in and support. Leave a like on the page, leave a comment. The students will appreciate it. We have to appreciate each other. So tomorrow, Gingerland Secondary School, they will have their graduation in person. And sometime early in the new year, the Charlestown Secondary School will have their graduation. You see, Mr. President, this is a government that believes that it is important that when our students go out there and they work hard over so many years to get to the point where they're at graduation and they achieve, we believe that they deserve recognition. And so we are ensuring that they get that recognition that they deserve, Mr. President. So again, I want to commend students. Can't do it enough. Commend the parents and the guardians. And commend our teachers, hard-working staff, the principals, everybody who has had anything to do with the success of our students. Mr. President, recapturing the momentum and restoring fiscal sustainability. Very fitting. Very fitting. Because you see, we were going at a certain speed. And if you ever run, Mr. President, especially long distance, because this is a long distance race, Running government is not a sprint where you go from day to day and you finish. It's almost like a never-ending thing. It's a long distance thing. And I used to be a long distance athlete, so I know what I'm talking about. Don't laugh, Don't laugh. I come a lot of fuss too. The member opposite was an athlete too, A good one. Very good athlete. I remember that. Very good athlete. She was a very good athlete. You see, So if you're running a race, and it's a long distance race, and something stops in front of you to trip you up, you're going to lose a little bit of momentum. Okay? And what you have to do is to try to pick back up and slowly build back the momentum until you get back to where you were. If you make the mistake of falling down, then you have to start up again. If you make the mistake after you lose the momentum to just try to drive forward one time, you're going to lose your breath. You're going to lose your breath. So this government understands what we are dealing with. The government understands that COVID-19 is a serious thing. The government understands that you have to put certain things in place to ensure that you can then propel forward from there. I didn't even want to talk so much about vaccines. But the government has gone all out to try to get vaccines, and we have been successful in getting vaccines. And we have launched a successful vaccine program here in Nevis. I believe the majority of the adults on Nevis are now vaccinated.
Including all of us on this side.
Vaccinated for free. Yes, including all of us on the government side. And some of us getting ready to take the booster shot. And some have taken it already. You see, Mr. President, the vaccines have been free of cost to the people. They didn't come free of cost to the government in all cases. In some cases, we've gotten, donations and so on. But we had to go through a lot of hoops to ensure that we were in the front of the line to get vaccines and so on. We didn't just sit there. The government didn't just sit there and vaccines fall in the lap of the government. And we have come to the people and said, the vaccine is the best way for us to safeguard our population from COVID-19. The best way for us to get our economy up and running as it was before. Some people have gone out there to spread all kind of misinformation about the vaccine. Some of them don't have anything against the vaccine really, Some people don't have anything against the vaccine. But just to play politics, with serious things, they have gone out, and when you ask them certain questions, you see them start to banter around and beat around and so on. I was going to say something, but I ain't going to bother. Take it easy. But you see, Mr. President, these are serious things. And this is a serious government. I want to talk a little bit about my own ministry that I'm privileged to lead. In the Ministry of Education, Information Technology, and Library Service. And like every other ministry, Mr. President, it's been a challenge. 2020, well, it's always a challenge, But from 2020 until now, it's just been different, Mr. President. You can't come here to talk about budget and not talk about what's happening, because it affects every single facet of life. I don't think that we have seen something in our lifetime like this that has affected every single thing. Healthcare, agriculture. Agriculture has sort of been the beneficiaries. Because a lot of people now going into agriculture. Healthcare. Our healthcare system has been stretched. Madam Minister has been working overtime. And you know the good thing about this government? Got good people strategically placed to lead in certain areas. You got the right person in the right spot. There are no square pegs over here trying to fit into round holes. Everybody is well suited. And so, as the challenges come, Mr. President, you know, we are able to adjust and to rise to meet the challenges. Just Monday gone, I was privileged to go down to the library at our new location, just outside of the public market there, in the building that belongs to Mr. Slack. Because, you know, we relocated there just recently, for those who don't know that. I was privileged to go there for a short ceremony with the library staff, because they were recognizing the hard work that the staff had put in throughout the year. And I was told it's just going to be a small in-house thing. And when I got there and I opened the door, I was pleasantly surprised, because there was a backdrop to take pictures and so on. And if you follow me on Facebook, I had all of the pictures up on Facebook. I'm not as photogenic as the Honorable Premier, but I like to take pictures from time to time. You know, he put up everything on Facebook. So I'm not as photogenic. But when I got there and I saw the setup of the place and the way that the staff was dressed, you know, I felt good to see that the camaraderie and that everybody was showing appreciation for the hard work that they have all been putting in. And you know, the library is someplace that is open to the public. They have to welcome people who you don't know. And when you're dealing with COVID-19 and you have so many different people coming in and out throughout the day, of course you're following all of the necessary protocols. But you never know. You never know. And so we have to commend our staff, because they are there and they are working and in a sort of uncertain environment. You know, some people not thinking about it like that. But that is how it is. People come in and you don't know who is who. They sanitize and so on, but you still don't know. Everybody is wearing their mask. You still don't know. And I was happy to go there and join with them. Immaculately dressed. If you look at the pictures, you would see. And they were recognizing each other. There was a little prize giving and award ceremony for the persons who go the extra mile and the persons who are good at a particular area and so on. And that made me feel good. Not because everybody, Mr. President, who was there, that they are working and it's a job and they are being paid. It didn't mean that they couldn't recognize the hard work that they were putting in. It didn't mean they couldn't recognize who's going above and beyond. You see, Mr. President, we got to be careful. We have to be very careful when we're speaking, you know. We have to be very, very careful. Because to go and say that simply because people are employed and they have a job to do a certain thing, that they cannot be recognized. I don't know how you could say that one and then take it back, you know. I don't know how you could say that and then want anybody to recognize you for anything. Because you're basically saying that once you're working and you're being paid, you can't be recognized. And here we have examples. I've given a lot of examples already for today. It's not that I'm harping on this, you know. It's just that every time I start to talk about something, and you realize that people showing appreciation, the light bulb goes off in the head and I say, but wait, these people working, they're being paid to do a job. you know, it just comes back to that. So we got to be careful when we talk. Sometimes we're talking to try to make one point, but then we make a point that is not so much in our favor, that is a much bigger point. And we just see it coming back time and time again. So over the course of this year, Mr. President, the library held what they call book tasting, and that was for Black History Month. You know, we got a lot of things going on at the library. Every time I go to the library and I sit and I talk, you know, I'm amazed at the amount of things that they do. So they had the book tasting earlier for Black History Month, and they showcased quite a bit of books. Some of these books were written by local persons. And we have quite a few students who come through, and sometimes students are amazed when they are shown certain books and so on, and they are told that this was written by a Nevisian. Can't believe we got big authors and so on like that. For World Poetry Day in March, Mr. President, there was what they call a poet tree, where not poetry, poet tree, where there was a tree, and basically the leaves on the tree were verses, you know, small poems and so on that they put to make the leaves on the tree. So they call it a poet tree. Not poetry, poet tree. So we had that for World Poetry Day. And there were some blank leaves that were left, and persons were encouraged to, you know, add their own poems and creations to it. The library also introduced televised Saturday morning storytime sessions in August, Mr. President. Those were televised on NTV, and the library has gotten very, very good feedback from, you know, kids and parents and teachers all across the Federation. And they want to continue to expand this. Provision has also been made to deliver after-school assistance programs using a sort of hybrid approach, in lieu of the fact that, you know, people are not coming in as much as they used to because of the COVID-19. So every time we talk about anything, COVID-19 has affected it. So I want to take the opportunity, of course, tell people to go out and get vaccinated. Let's get past this whole COVID-19 thing. We heard about Alpha, Delta, Lambda here in the Federation, and now Omicron. You know, somebody asked me the other day, where they get all these names from? And I told them they were using what, the Greek alphabet? Yeah. Greek alphabet. They said, oh, I didn't know there was a Greek alphabet. So I said, yeah, that's where the names are coming from, the Greek alphabet. So Mr. President, the library continues to, you know, they operate as a sort of hub for persons who want to do things like SATs and those kind of things. If you want to go off to university in the United States, you need to get those SATs done. And that's the place where people go to get that information and to get classes and so on toward the SATs. And so I was very happy to go there on Monday to, you know, bring my commendations to them and to tell them thank you for the hard work that they have been doing and for the work that they will continue to do. Because thank you is very important. People like to be appreciated. We are all human after all. Even though we working and we getting paid, we like to feel appreciated. And so, Mr. President, I want to take this opportunity from here to thank the librarian, Mrs. Morton, and her entire staff for the hard work that they have been putting in and the work that they will continue to put in. So, President, one of the things that happened in the Ministry of Education this year that I'm very proud about, and we should all be very happy about this. We were able to install what you call DIA internet, direct internet access. You know, we have our internet in our home. And I think last year, when I came to the budget, I said that we were working on the DIA internet project, and that hopefully in 2021 we would be able to get it done. Well, I'm happy to come back and report now that we were able to get that project completed in 2021, earlier up in the year. And so all of our public schools, primary and secondary schools on Nevis, now have DIA internet. That's usable internet in our schools. And we can't minimize this, Mr. President. This is a big thing. This is a really, really big thing. Because normally with internet that we have in our households and so on, it can probably support maybe 10, 12 devices. You can safely use the internet and get what you want done. But when you're talking about a large school, you need a direct line to the internet, so that there is no throttling when you get 40, 50, 150 devices on the internet at the same time. They all need to be able to access what they're looking for. And so we were able to partner with Flow, who gave us a really, really good price. And I want to thank Flow. I want to thank Flow. I think, you know, we thank Flow. They were very amenable. We didn't have to twist their arms or anything like that. So I want to thank them. Good negotiations also. But thank them, because it's for the good of our students. So now when you go to any school in Nevis, our students can be on the internet. And Mr. President, it could not have come at a better time. Couldn't have come at a better time. Because, particularly in the case of our secondary schools, where we have still sort of had a blended approach to learning, I think the mover of the bill would have spoken about it in his presentation yesterday when he spoke about dual modalities. You know, that's some high language. Dual modalities. It simply means that you're having face-to-face classes, and then you're having classes in a virtual space. Because of the fact that, you know, we have to maintain certain spacing requirements in our classrooms. And our classrooms were built for students to sit side by side. When we built them years and years ago, they were built contemplating that students would be close to each other. COVID has come in, and we now have to separate them 3 feet and 6 feet and so on. And so therefore, the current spacing that we have is a little inadequate in some cases. And so we have to utilize dual modalities. So the virtual classroom and the in-person classroom. The virtual classroom means that students would be somewhere sitting on a computer or on a device and getting that learning through there. The software that we're using is Microsoft Teams to create the virtual classroom. It also means that the teachers, they would be in school because they would have some classes in person and some classes virtually. And they would have to conduct these classes via the internet. So this DIA internet could not have come at a better time. If we didn't have it, what would we do? We wouldn't be able to utilize the virtual classrooms in the way that we are doing it. You know, just the other day, I participated in a OECS meeting of ministers of education. And as I sat there in the meeting, and it was a virtual meeting via one of the platforms. I think it was either Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And Mr. President, you know what they were talking about? in that meeting? They were talking about trying to find ways, Mr. President, to bring usable internet into the various schools so that they could better utilize the virtual classrooms and so on. So what they were talking about doing in the OECS meeting, Mr. President, is what we have already done here on Nevis. We have already done it. And that was the whole thrust of the meeting. I think I spent 2.5 hours in the meeting listening to all of the discussions about it. And when I took a turn to talk, what I did was I spoke about our experience here in Nevis, having done it, Mr. President. You know how good I felt? And then people come here, Mr. President. People come here to this honorable house to tell us that people other places, oh, Barbados is running good. I want to commend the Prime Minister. You know? And when you go into a meeting to talk about education and where we are looking to head in the near future, where others are looking to head in the near future is where we are already here in Nevis. You know how good I felt? Ahead of the curve. So every day, our students can go to school, and when they pull out their phone, they don't need to have data on the phone that costs a lot of money. They just log on to the school network at no cost to them. When our teachers go to school and they need to facilitate the virtual classrooms, they don't have to go run somewhere to look for internet or go home to try to get onto an internet connection or go to some sort of restaurant or something to try to get internet connection. No, they sit down at the comfort of their desk in the staff room or wherever, anywhere on the campus, Mr. President. They could go out under a tree and sit down and just turn on the computer and turn on the wireless and get internet connection and usable internet. Ahead of the curve here in Nevis. You know, I remember when we first started to discuss that same internet thing. I will stay on it, you know, because it's worth staying on. Spend a little time on it. I remember when we first started to discuss it, and I heard what the cost of it would be. To my mind, I knew that the cost, because of the amount of bandwidth that we wanted, and I will say it, 300 megabytes of bandwidth. So for those persons who understand technology, 300 megs of bandwidth, that is what we were going for, an enormous amount of bandwidth. And when I heard the cost, I said, this cost sounds kind of high, you know, but not for 300 megs. It's a good cost for 300 megs, but considering the budgetary constraints, this is a lot of money. And I remember when I went to the Honorable Premier, and the Honorable Premier said, well, this is in the best interest of the children of Nevis. No trouble at all. We will find the money to do it. And so, it amazes me. I'm actually kind of flabbergasted. People come to the house to talk about leadership. You want to see leadership? Leadership is right here. Right over here, Mr. President. So when I sit in the OECS meeting to talk about the future, and everybody is saying, well, this is where we want to get to. You know where they're saying they want to get? Where Nevis is already. That was the last time I'm going to talk about that. And Mr. President, we didn't have to go outside to find people to implement this project, you know. When I started talking about the project, I wanted to kind of commend our IT team, you know. But there were so many things to say about it because it's a feel-good project. We didn't have to go outside to try to find the expertise to implement this. This was implemented by our IT team, our own in-house IT team. The only thing flooded was said, there is a connection. And then they did the connect. But all of the work was done by our IT team to put this whole thing together. No, not at all. They are very, very well versed. See, Mr. President, is IT you're talking about, you know. I spend so much time talking about all of this internet thing and how I felt good that we are ahead of the curve. But it's IT I really want to commend because they put all of this together. Very, very tech-savvy group, Mr. President. I think yesterday I heard the mover of the bill speak a little bit about something that's going on with the financial services sector. That the financial services sector is now online, fully online? Yes. And, yeah. Yes, fully online. And we also have the CCTV project going on here in Nevis. You can drive through Charlestown now and not see cameras. Charlestown is a safe town now. You know, every time I pass by the roundabout, heading out of town, up Value Mart area, and you look on the pole, cameras watching you from every angle. We are safe place. That's a government that's working for the people.
You don't get no credit for that. That's what you elected to.
Part of your job, man. Part of your job. Yeah? All of these things are things that the good IT department, they're the ones who are taking the lead. You know? We have Mr. Tianjo, technically savvy. Craig, the director, Jevon. You know, I like to think of myself as somebody who knows things about technology, Mr. President. I like to think so. I could code a little bit and do a little bit about network and so on, networking. I know a little bit of technology, but sometimes I sit with these IT guys, Craig and Jevon and them, and they start to speak. And I got to kind of swallow a little because the jargon that they speak with, you know, the level of intelligence and the level of competence that these guys have, it's astounding. And we have that kind of talent right here in Nevis. Right here. So they're able to do so many different things. The CCTV project, water department is now online. Minister Brand? Yeah, pay your bills online. All of these being facilitated. I believe, Mr. President, that I heard you say that we're now recording all of these proceedings. All of those things, Mr. President. That's IT for you, Mr. President. I know the good thing about IT, you're not going to hear too much about IT because they're so good at what they're doing that the problems that would cause you to have to call them, you don't have them. We are here right now and we are streaming live, right? Okay. All of that was set up. We're streaming over the NIA's network, right here. NTV, when NTV stream live over the NIA's network, all of that is IT. You know? Everything that happens in Nevis, you could stream it live from almost anywhere. All of that, Mr. President. So I want to commend Mr. David and his team, you know, for the hard work that they put in. And you see, here again is another example, but I'm not going to go down that road. You know? I want to commend them for the work that they are doing. They deserve our thanks and they deserve our praise because they do a good job. Mr. President, if you want to know, right? If you want to know what the priorities of a government are, any government, look at how the government spend its money. You know? In anything you do, you want to know what's being prioritized. Look at where the money is going. And when you look at this budget, right, I can't help but be proud as the minister with responsibility for education. Because when you look at the money, a lot of the money, a big part of the budget is going towards education. I think the Ministry of Finance has the biggest allotment. And then the Ministry of Health. And you would understand the Ministry of Health with all that's going on with COVID-19 and so on, that they would have the second largest allotment. But just after that, Mr. President, is the Ministry of Education high on the list of priorities. Is education. And year after year, Mr. President, that remains true. That we're high on the list. So we got the third largest budget. I believe we have the most employees under the Ministry of Education. I think we beat out health on that. But health has a bigger budget because COVID-19 is the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. We all have to deal with it. And the government is putting the priorities where they should be. Mr. President, the mover of the bill yesterday, and you know, I keep going back to the bill because it's a good budget. I'm here to support the budget. It's a good budget. You know? Recapturing the momentum. We had a little stumble because of COVID, but we are recapturing the momentum. Restoring fiscal sustainability. That's what we're doing. And yesterday, the mover of the bill mentioned in his presentation, he highlighted several things that have been happening under the Ministry of Education, several programs and initiatives. The broadband internet that I spoke about already, the use of online platforms and the virtual environment, the virtual classroom, dual modalities, we are calling it. The online classroom became our salvation during the COVID-19. You know, Mr. President, in a lot of other jurisdictions, they haven't been able to set up these virtual classrooms yet, you know. That's one of the things I discovered when I sat in meetings. You want to know another thing that I discovered, Mr. President? No. That in some of the jurisdictions close to us around here, students have not gone back to school yet in person. And we've been back to school here in Nevis since when? 2020? Back in 2020? We were able to go back to school. And so, Mr. President, we are not doing too badly considering all of the circumstances. You know, if you listen to some people, you would feel like we're doing bad in Nevis. But a simple Google search has already proven, you know, that some of the things that they have come here to say that, you know, they're just not true. Just not true. Come to command other people who are doing worse than us. Imagine that. The move I mentioned yesterday, the Read With Me initiative. And I believe that the Honorable Premier took part in Read With Me. I was able to take part in Read With Me. It was something that the Ministry of Education, the early childhood area came up with, where we went down to the NIPAC, students from, oh, the member for Gingerland is indicating that he also participated in Read With Me. Wonderful initiative. You see, we're not just sitting on our laurels. People have ideas. So the early childhood section came up with the idea to do Read With Me. You go down to NIPAC, you bring a certain section of the young children, the preschoolers, and you have people read and puppets and so on. We cannot undervalue reading, Mr. President. And so it's good when people in certain positions could go down and sit with the kids and read. We had a good puppet show and all of that, Mr. President. You see, people, because we live in a world with so much technology, cell phones, computers, we got video, camera, we have recording equipment and so on. Sometimes we're not thinking about the basic things, and reading is one of those basic things. It's only in the last 100 years, Mr. President, that we have been able to record speech and record sound and put speech and put video together. Prior to that, Mr. President, to pass knowledge from one generation to the next generation, it was the written word that did that. So people had to be able to read to get that knowledge from the previous generation. And that's what we are trying to instill in our children from a very, very early age. From preschool, we're trying to instill the need and the importance for reading, Mr. President. So that was a wonderful initiative. You know, sometimes, Mr. President, it's the little things that turn out to be the big things. A little thing like Read With Me at the preschool level, and the students get into that reading. By the time they're in higher primary school and high school, they're very fluent with their reading. So it's the little things that turn into big things. I'm speeding up a little bit, Mr. President, because I'm cognizant of the time. So, President, the mover also mentioned our partnership with the Republic of China on Taiwan, getting Ms. Chen, our volunteer, who is here and teaching the Chinese Mandarin to our children in school, in the high schools. And the program has also been expanded a bit to include some of our teachers and some adults who have also signed up for the classes. A big part of the population of the world speaks Chinese. And the Taiwanese have been our partners in pretty much everything. Look at the beautiful Pinnis Park that we are about to open. And so that is another wonderful initiative. If we can get our students to learn the Chinese at an early age. We've been getting students who go to Taiwan on scholarship to study pretty much everything. If they already have that background when they're coming up, it's going to be much easier for them when they go off to study. Another thing that I want to mention, Mr. President, is that during this year, we were happy to partner with the Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine to upgrade and outfit the computer lab at the Elizabeth Pemberton Primary School. And I want to thank Dean Dr. Sean Cullinan and all of Ross University. Mr. President, they came on board and they provided us with the computers to outfit that lab. You know, I was so happy to go there for the opening, to hear the principal and the teacher and the students talk about how happy they were to have that computer lab up and running. So the government, Mr. President, did the work to fix up the lab, spruce up the lab, put in all of the new equipment and so on, and then Ross University provided all of the computers and so on. So we are very, very happy to partner with Ross University. And, Mr. President, we have since gotten a commitment from Ross University that they're going to partner with us in 2022 to fix up a couple more of our computer labs. So good things are happening, Mr. President, contrary to what you might hear. Good things are happening. This year, Mr. President, we were also very fortunate, very, very fortunate to receive a wonderful contribution from the Winsong Foundation. 3 brand new coaster buses to be used as school buses, Mr. President. 1, 2, 3. That represents an investment of just under $600,000, Mr. President. It's no small thing. So we just got 3 brand new school buses, compliments of the Winsong Foundation. And you know, Mr. President, that was not the beginning of it, and I know it's not going to be the end of it either. Back in 2016, we had already gotten 2 school buses from the Winsong Foundation. So this brings to a grand total of 5 school buses that we have already gotten compliments of the Winsong Foundation. That's just under $1 million worth of investment into the young people of Nevis, Mr. President. Wonderful. Good things are happening. And you know, I heard that we have some more investments on the horizon. But we'll hear about that soon enough, Mr. President. So we want to thank the Winsong Foundation. It's always wonderful when people can come forward, you know, to partner with us for the good of the young people in the country. Mr. President, the mover of the bill yesterday, I tell you, it's a good budget, you know, also mentioned our TVET program. And he spent quite a bit of time on the TVET program because I believe that it is important, Mr. President. You know, when I got the package with the budget yesterday, I said to myself, this budget is about education. Because when I looked on the cover page of the budget, not just on the cover page, I see housing on the cover page, but housing is down at the bottom. You know? Housing is down at the bottom. And I see the film industry there too, you know. I see the film industry right there. You know? Really and truly. You know? If I said it one time, you know, yeah, but over and over and over, no man. And you know, we have some caring teachers in Nevis, you know, because I am there and one caring teacher messaged me and said, I'm offering grammar classes for free. For free. So, Mr. President, when I looked at the budget, housing on the bottom, the film industry is there. But when I look on the top, I see the TVET building at Gingerland Secondary School, education right at the top again. You know, right away I was bullish about this budget because education is at the top. And so, Mr. President, talk a little bit about the TVET building at Gingerland. Wonderful building. It's the construction is done now. We're going to have the building outfitted. I think we have most of the stuff to outfit the building already. I'm getting that nod of approval that we have most of the stuff to outfit the building. We're going to be doing things like cosmetology. You know, nowadays, you see all the ladies walking around, well, dolls up there, hair well done, the makeup well done, the nails well done, and so on. We're going to be teaching that. We're going to be teaching that in the schools. You know, catering to the young people, teaching technical things, so that when our students come out of school, they can transition seamlessly into the workplace and not just go to the workplace to learn from scratch or to start from the beginning. No, they're going to have some technical capabilities already. That is what TVET is about. We're going to do some plumbing there. So we are going to be bringing people out of high school, and I want to say it kind of with emphasis, out of high school with the necessary skills as plumbers, you know, so they could come out and maybe apprentice with somebody, but they won't be coming out of school without skills. They would have the necessary skills. Electricians, Mr. President. So this is something that is going to be, you know, really, really good. And this is, while it's aimed at our high school students, or people of the age to be in high school, we're looking to expand to persons who are already out of school. I believe that the mover of the bill said that yesterday. Yes. So I was rather surprised. I was rather surprised when I was sitting there this morning to hear the member opposite say, well, you know, this is something that should be extended to, you know, people who are out of school and the general public. And I'm there saying to myself, but the mover of the bill said that yesterday. So if you're coming to the House to debate the budget, at least listen to the budget man. At least listen and understand and comprehend. And don't come to say that you're looking for something that is already in there. It's there. The mover said it. So, Mr. President, as I said, you know, we don't have a monopoly on ideas. We don't believe that we alone know everything. So sometimes when you hear an idea from somebody, it's good to listen to the idea, you know. So the member opposite this morning was giving advice where we should go, you know. Perhaps it would have been better, instead of doing the TVET Center at Gingerland Secondary School and the TVET Center that is to be built at the Charlestown Secondary School, that we could have come together and built one state-of-the-art technology and training center for tertiary education. And Mr. President, when I was talking about 2 minutes earlier, I said I wanted to stress high school, you know. I said I wanted to stress high school. While there is nothing at all wrong with building something for tertiary education, what we realize, Mr. President, is that you have to catch the people early. You have to catch the children early at high school age, so that by the time they get to 16 and 17, they already have the skill. 10 minutes. So the whole thinking behind the thrust to TVET, Mr. President, is that you have some students who are not so academically inclined. They're not so good at the math and the English and the other quote-unquote academic subjects, but they are more technically inclined. So you want to put them on that technical path very early. But Mr. President, this is not a one-track kind of thing, because it also takes into account students who are very much academically inclined, while at the same thing being very much hands-on and skills. So you not only can get the technical competency, but you can get both. I think they call it CVQ and NVQ. Yes, you can get a CVQ or you can get an NVQ. depending on your level of competence. So it's not just about one level. So it's not just going to be a hands-on thing. It's going to be the practical and the theoretical at the same time. So some persons are going to get more hands-on and more practical, and some persons are going to get a combination of the two, Mr. President. And the TVET is not going to be just limited to high school, because I think that it goes on to A level. Yes, I'm correct. It goes on to A level, which is tertiary, the same tertiary that the member spoke about. And Mr. President, as a matter of practicality, okay, we have students who are already at Gingerland Secondary. We have students who are already at Charlestown Secondary. So if you're going to teach the technical subjects, so what you're going to do, take the students from Gingerland Secondary and take the students from Charlestown Secondary. So they're going to do some classes at Charlestown and some classes at Gingerland. And then some other time throughout the day, they're going to go to the technical center. Well, the people, the experts who thought about it, thought that it would have been in the best interest of the students to have the technical wing on site so that students could straddle between the technical classes and the traditional classes on site. That was the thinking. Probably there's nothing wrong with the thinking of the honorable member opposite. But equally, there's nothing wrong with the thinking of the persons who came up with this idea. Right, Mr. President? So there's no one way how to do anything. And I believe, Mr. President, that the TVET project, as it is currently structured, is going to be a very, very successful project. And in the future, we will see persons coming out of school with the necessary competencies. The young ladies will come out and they will be able to go into business quite quickly. We heard about supporting small business. Well, this is going to support small businesses. It's going to throw out a lot of persons who could do cosmetology and so on, a lot of persons who could do plumbing, a lot of persons who would go on to become architects and so on. These are all the things that were contemplated by the TVET program. I'm being told my time is short. I like to talk long, but Mr. President, I want to give commendation to the good folks in the Ministry of Education. P.S. Barrett, who is here to support, and P.E.O. Claxton, who is also here to support. I want to thank them for the hard work that they put in. These are two of the hardest working persons that I know. They make things so easy on me. Even on weekends, when I pass by Department of Education, the PEO's car is always there, always there. Hard worker, very intelligent, smart people. And you see, I'm not going to take the opportunity again, to talk about it. See, we got to recognize people when they're working hard. I also want to thank all of the education officers at the Department of Education and all of the other staff at the ministry and at the department. All of our principals who work really hard, and our teachers, and all of our non-teaching staff at our schools. They do excellent work throughout the year. Mr. President, 2021 has been a good enough year. It has its trials and so on, but we have come through. And I think that we are on the cusp of recapturing that same momentum that the budget spoke about. I want to take a little second just to encourage our teachers, because I still realize that there are some teachers who remain unvaccinated. And I want to encourage them to go and get vaccinated. And our young people who are 12 and above, go out and get vaccinated. Protect yourselves. Protect your ability to learn. COVID-19 is what has impacted our schools. And we have to make sure that we get past it, and the way to do that is through vaccination. So I want to encourage the parents, you know, there's a lot of information out there and there's a lot of misinformation out there. Get the right information. If you're unsure about something, speak to your health professionals. Get the kids who are 12 and above vaccinated so that when they go to school, they are protected. You know, help us to protect our schools so that we can remain in school, we can have the face-to-face class, which we know is the best way to do it. You know, and that is how you contribute to helping the system to move forward. Get vaccinated, teachers, students. Mr. President, you know, I'm close to the end. You said 10 minutes. But I want to take just about a little 2 minutes here, you know, because I heard something said this morning. You know, let me start like this. Because the member opposite went to the budget under section 180, where the mover spoke yesterday about remittances from the CBI. That we get what? $3.8 million per month, $3.75 million per month in Nevis. That comes up to just about $45 million annually, Mr. President. And I heard, you know, and I sat there with a grimace, Mr. President, on my face, when I heard the member opposite refer to the people of Nevis as a baby sucking on the breast of its mother. You know, I had such a grimace on my face because I could not believe, I really could not believe that anybody could come to this honorable house to refer to Nevis and to Nevisians in such a derogatory way. You understand? I was so taken aback by it. I've had a hard time composing myself all through this presentation, you know, because it's this I wanted to talk about all morning, all day. This is what I wanted to talk about. I could talk for 2 hours on this, Mr. President, because it is utterly disrespectful and ridiculous for anybody to come here to say that the fact that we in Nevis believe that we are entitled to a fair share of the CBI proceeds, that somehow there is something wrong with that, and that somehow we are trying to suck on somebody's breast. Mr. President, CBI is about maybe 20% of the annual budget here in Nevis. Here in Nevis. You know, next week we're going to have a federal budget, and I hope that it is said there what percentage of the federal budget is CBI, because I have looked it up for past years and it's not 20%. It's closer to 50%. So if it could be closer to 50 in St. Kitts, why it can't be closer to 50 in Nevis? And if I seem a little bit animated about this, it is because this is an upsetting thing. You understand? Our passport says St. Kitts and Nevis too. When Canada decided that we needed a visa to go to Canada, they didn't single out and say, well, Nevis people, you all could still come, and St. Kitts people don't come. They didn't say that. They said St. Kitts and Nevis, one country. There's no country named St. Kitts and no country named Nevis. There are 2 islands, yes, but it's one country. We're not, nobody in Nevis is saying that we want any St. Kitts tax money. Nobody's saying that they want any St. Kitts tax money, what is collected at the port or what is collected anyway. Nobody's asking for that. We are talking about something that is outside of the traditional tax revenues. We're talking about CBI. the proceeds from the sale of the citizenship, from the passport. So what? I think each person is more of a citizen than a Nevis person? No. And for the members of the opposition, or for the member opposite to come here to say that, what does it tell you about the mindset of the opposition? You know, I heard the member opposite coming towards the close of the presentation, saying if the people in Nevis want this, they should vote for NRP. If the people in Nevis want that, should vote for NRP. The people in Nevis want the other, they should vote for NRP. And you know what, I sat there and I thought in my mind that the people of Nevis have been very smart over the past couple of years in not voting for NRP, because you see the mindset, you see what their mindset is, that they don't believe that the people of Nevis deserve anything. Hear them? Oh, y'all must come up with ways in Nevis to diversify the economy. Well, what ways they come up with in think is to diversify the economy? It's the same CBI. So what is good for the goose ain't good for the gander? All of a sudden? But sometimes, Mr. President, when you hear things being said a certain way, you got to look inside the matter to see what else is inside the matter other than the pestle. You okay? Sometimes, Mr. President, you got to see what is crushing up inside of the matter. Mr. President, I could talk all day on that, but I am respectful. Mr. President, say you want to go for lunch. You understand? You know, I have to be amazed.
You see, remember, your 90 minutes is up. And that's when I showed you that, yes. It was 10 minutes to go. But you're 90 minutes, in fact, you're 93 minutes.
Mr. President, if you could please give me about 5 minutes just to do my wrap-up. I don't think I'll take all of it, but just to wrap up.
Question is, should the member get an additional 5 minutes to wrap up? Providing... Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You know, it sometimes amazes me. And I wanted to say all of the good things about the Ministry of Education, you know. Or else I would have come up here and I would have talked all day about... I mean, how you could come into the house, Mr. President, to talk about the people of Nevis like a baby sucking on their mother. I mean, and then you expect to go out and tell people vote for you?
Same people.
The same people? So you don't understand? I mean, come on. But when you see things happening a certain way, you look inside the matter to see what else is in there beside the person. And when you find that out, you know exactly why they're operating the way how they operate. But you know, history has a way of repeating itself. They have a meme that goes around and the meme says, you don't hear. They don't hear. You know? They don't hear. They don't understand. They tried it before. Right? And the people rebuke them. Now they're going to skirt over to try it again. The people will rebuke them again. They're not tired of being rebuked. Mr. President, I want to wrap up. I want to again commend the mover of the bill. I believe it's very fitting budget. We're capturing the momentum. I want to wish, you know, everybody a wonderful Christmas season. And this is the time of year to be happy. In spite of everything that is going on with COVID-19, I believe we have the Christmas tree lighting up in town this evening. You know, everybody stay safe and you know, try to social distance a little bit, wear your mask and so on. But, you know, it's a time for coming together. It's a time for giving and sharing and so on. And I want to spread a little bit of Christmas joy and a little bit of Christmas, you know, cheer. So, Merry Christmas to the member opposite to you, Mr. President, to the clerk, sergeant at arms, everybody who is in the gallery, everybody who is watching, whether on Facebook or YouTube or on NTV. And of course, to my colleagues over here on this side, I want to wish all of you a wonderful Christmas, you know. We have been here for a while, you know, because a lot there to say. Mr. President, with those few words, I want to thank you for indulging me, and I wish this bill safe passage to this honorable house. May it please you.
But would it to be to fit in for that time, or only one? Two gonna fit in. Okay, fine.
Mr. President, I rise and seek your leave for the adjournment of this honorable house until 3 p.m. this afternoon.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion.
The question is that this honorable house be adjourned until 3 p.m. this afternoon. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House adjourned.
You don't want to say like a child.